Well, welcome again. The illustrious Brent Roberts and myself are going to tackle the big news. This last few days, we've been wrestling with and trying to understand the budget. Now, it's kind of interesting that the federal budget normally is always done in the spring. This is the first one we have it in the fall. So, is it a bigger budget? Well, it costs a lot more money. So, what do you think, Brent?
Well, I definitely think they had to give themselves a little bit more time when you've got a new prime minister. They've got to, try to see where they're at in that respect, and don't go out there right off the bat because they're going to be criticism. So they maybe have a little bit more time to let the public see what they're doing before they do this, and probably that delay has helped them.
Oh, you're very kind. I mean, there's a lot of other views that saying, they just dragged it out. But the thing is, with all budgets, usually it's great lot of wishful thinking on the government's part, or more likely, lots of promises made. And maybe let's take a look at exactly some of the issues that are in the budget relating to, or possibly relating to real estate. But first of all, they want to support more of multi-unit housing. That's the same as the BC government has the same kind of objective.
Right.
But this is one way to do that. They're going to increase the annual issuance limit for CMHC-backed mortgage bonds. It's called a CMB, from 60 billion to 80 billion. So when you look at that and say, well, that's kind of interesting. It's for multi-unit housing, right? But here comes the things, the devil in the detail kind of thing. It starts sometime in 2026. So don't immediately expect developers to be able to have access to those funds. We don't know what the funds are, what the details are. Now, the next one I think is really interesting because they're going to eliminate the underused housing tax. Now,
Right.
nobody understood that UHT, and it was really aimed at foreigners that own properties here already for years, and all of a sudden they have to see how much use do I have. But here's the devil of the detail thing. It's not the elimination. It's elimination or near elimination. What the hell does that mean, right? So do we have to sort of figure out what exactly does that mean? Well, then they come up with first-time buyer home support, removing the GST on new homes up to 1 million and reducing the GST on homes of between 1 million and 1.5 million. Then finally, on indigenous housing, which is another thing pending, they commit 2.8 billion for urban, rural, and northern indigenous housing. So these are, in broad strokes, some of the things that they want to achieve.
Well, exactly. One of the things is too, a lot of things that I've always noticed in budgets there, and it's in this budget as well. We're going to do this over the next 5 years, and
Yeah.
we might not be in power in 5 years, but this is the stuff we're going to do. And Trudeau did the same thing when he said, "Hey, we're going to give money for the SkyTrain in Surrey to Langley." In the first election, in the second election, he spoke of the same money, but it sounds like a new promise, and that no money had gone towards it to begin with. And then in the third election, I think we got some money,
Well, that's
but
that's true, and it's like the promises made. I did with Michael Campbell. We did a radio show on Mr. Carney,
mhm,
promising 500,000 houses.
right.
500,000 per year. And the point was that, according to CMHC, this year we're going to have 217,000. In fact, the most we ever had in one year was 6 years ago when we had 270,000. So go to 500 is sort of crazy. Well, what are they doing this time in the budget? Well, it's now reduced. We double the annual home building pace, so they're admitting that it was only around 200 because now it's going to be between 430 and 480,000 a year to plug the supply gap. And like you said, these promises have been election after election after election, and these issues that they have, that is supposed to do it all for us. The promise on the GST elimination of first-time buyers is also not new. It's sort of a rehashed thing. And it's nothing wrong with it. I think the GST, when I just bought a condo. Not
Right.
only it cost probably 30% of the price was in municipal fees and costs and whatnot. On top of that, I now have to pay the GST, which is another 5%. It's just tax after tax after tax. So certainly to eliminate that on the lower priced
Well,
homes is a benefit.
one of the things you're saying, Ozzy, you're absolutely right. And maybe, you went over it quickly, but I mean, the cost of building a condo, 30%, you just said, is the cost is tax. It's almost like going when we paid when we go to the gas station and, gas is tax, and then we pay GST on top of that tax. Are you kidding me? And
Yeah.
then, like, it's surprising and shocking. I mean, how many taxes can you continue to pay? Hidden obvious taxes or hidden taxes.
Yeah.
So when you're paying no GST on it, like you're paying as an investor, but a first-time buyer avoids it up to now $1 million and lesser at $1 million to $1.5 million. But we used to say about BC, it's one thing to get rid of the GST, but we have property purchase tax in BC as well, right? So
Yeah.
we call it BC, bring cash, right? You know,
Yeah. Yeah, this is why a lot of people like Alberta. And we did once a comparison with all the taxes, and it's mind-boggling that we are the worst in Canada in terms of the number of taxes. And when talk about taxes, look at what BC did. Well, we put up 1.1 billion in the next 5 years to help housing affordability and middle income rental supply. But in addition to that, so this year that's 318 million that they put in to
right?
deliver more middle income rental units. Now, what the hell does that mean? But they're projecting 1,400 units, like devil in the detail thing. We just
Right.
don't know. But the
Yeah.
crazy thing is that the BC government then goes and increases the vacancy tax for foreign owners from
Hmm.
2% to 3%. And for Canadian citizens, it moves to 1% from 0.5%. So if you have an Albertan and you want to buy something in Vancouver or in anywhere in BC, you have to pay a tax that's now a full 1% additional to all the other taxes that
Right.
we have on the board.
Yeah.
I have no idea what they're expecting this will attract buyers. I mean, when you look or investors, the big investors that used to come to BC, they came out of Seattle and they would maybe invest 20 million or 30 million or
Right.
more in creating jobs, usually in the IT sector, because we're quite well known as we have some of the largest IT companies right here in BC. But that
Absolutely.
money is going away. I mean, even if I wanted to invest something in a commercial sector, and I'm not we don't charge foreigners cannot buy commercial sector, but in BC it'll cost you 20%. So
Well, and you, and
20%
and
of the
you're right.
purchase price.
So I've got, you're bang on right. Like, I mean, first of all, we're discouraging investment from other places, like you said, from Seattle, which creates jobs, but they're also discouraging people from building new businesses and creating new opportunities because they're taxed less. A lot of the smart money has already left, and they're not coming back. They're not going to come back until we cannot continue to tax people to death like this. People are getting, and they've got legs. They can move with their feet. They can vote with their feet, and they're doing that. And you're seeing
Yeah.
other people from other countries leaving, Korea, all sorts of places. They're going back home. They're saying, "Hang on, you guys are taxing us to death." Um, Croatia, Japan, like, I mean, I'm seeing people, India, I'm seeing people leaving and they're not coming back right now.
Yeah.
So one of my customers, they're from Brazil. They love our country. They're taxed to death. They say we can't afford to live here. It's just getting too much in that respect. The budget doesn't really address that kind of stuff when they're talking about, we want more affordability. Well, affordability for food, affordability for housing, affordability. I know that the government's talking about putting out more money, billions and billions of dollars for low interest rate for building. Well, that's good. You're going to get more affordable housing, but not everybody wants a one bedroom four or 500 square foot condo. People are married, they need bigger units and stuff like that with kids.
Yeah.
So we do have to have we need to incentivize, and I think the government keeps on missing that.
Well, it's from their point of view, and usually it's I hate to say maybe a bureaucratic point of view. We have to manage this money. We make this money available, and then we have to manage it. Well, when you take a look at it again, and we talked about this before, they want to spend a lot of money in modular and prefabrication
Right.
areas, and one could be unkind and Remember that Mr. Carney was part of a big corporation in the United States which happened to own a big I don't want to say that, but the point is,
It's
whatever it
true.
is,
It's
it
true.
has to be built, right? You
Yeah.
cannot say, let's do a lot of prefabrication and gives us 430,000 units. Well, yeah, maybe after 3 years, once you've built, first of all, you need somebody to put in the money. A big corporation has to
Hmm.
be big. Then they have to build the factory. Then they have to do transportation. They have to have the expertise and the people to run it and build them. And then they have to understand the plans of what are they prefabricating? We're talking years,
Right.
not so in the same breath saying we're $400,000, it's going to be more affordable. That's absolute nonsense. Building more doesn't mean that it's going to be affordable more, more affordable to the end
No.
user. When as budgets go, there is certainly an attempt. I think the underused housing tax to eliminate, as long as we figure out what near eliminate means.
What that
uh,
means.
and nobody understands it. I mean, they had to postpone it 3 times so that that people could. And then the penalty is $10,000 if you don't do this. Yeah, but what exactly do you want me to do? Like I have a customer from Florida, and he said, "I have no idea. I don't understand it. I gave him to my accountant. He doesn't understand it."
Yeah.
So, so they're trying to sort of chip away at the edges. But what does the industry say? The root causes are municipal stalling, the zoning regulations, the time it takes, the cost to get to the market, and so on. Now, I noticed, like in Surrey, where you are,
Right.
I had the privilege to talk to the mayor, and they're really trying to, they eliminated any increases in the DCC during construction, all of those kind of things, which seem logical but weren't. But she's making those changes that she can make. But a lot of it
Right.
is the government, all areas have to get together and saying, okay, how do we get the builder to build? Right now, as you know, our developers are not building. They're actually backing off. They
They're
have the
backing off.
land. Even if they have approvals right now, they're not going in the
They're
market
not
because
going ahead.
they cannot make a profit. For some reason, it's okay that everybody can go into Bitcoin and make a fortune, or everybody can speculate in the stock market. Absolute mad
Hmm.
dash in the stock market. That's a good thing. But if somebody wants to invest in real estate, then you're immediately some sort of a dog, trying
Isn't
to.
that amazing, eh?
It's ridiculous. I mean,
Or you're
but
an
you need the
unscrupulous
investors to do
landlord.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
And you're right about building. I mean, you and I saw that building the other day, and I can't tell if it's going to be a high rise, a 6-story building, or a townhouse complex. It's got the basement, it's got the foundation, and I
yeah.
can't tell how deep the foundation was because it's there. And then they framed up the first floor, and it's fenced. There's nobody there working.
All right. Yeah.
It's cheaper for the developer to stop the expenses than it is for them to build right now. And that's a scary moment. And when Trudeau gave a break to the municipalities, he said, I'm going to not charge this money. Well, guess what? The government and the local municipalities didn't pass that saving on to the builders.
Yeah.
So, like you said, you've got to get all levels of government in line with things. And it's great that the Surrey mayor is Brenda's doing what she's doing, and Burnaby is very aggressive as well. There's some communities that are really aggressive, and there's some people that are still fighting it, and the development stuff. But then the developers are stopping themselves. So you're not going to get, Carney's not going to make it with this budget lowered as much as it is about how many units if two things don't happen. One, you get confidence back in the marketplace, you get people
Yeah.
buying, and then you've got to get people building it, like you said. Like my dad, was in the apprenticeship program in BC.
Mhm.
He was in charge of it. He said, Brent, when he came out here, and I think it was in the 90s, he said, this program hasn't changed since the 50s,
Yeah.
and I thought, holy mackerel, do you have an uphill battle? He worked for the
Yeah.
government. And I said, do you have an uphill battle? Well, and what happens is that when things are good, people are too busy to
Yeah.
train apprentices,
Yeah.
apprenticeship program. And when they're broke, they can't afford to. So,
Yeah.
I mean, so who's going to be doing all this work that they are going to, like you say, now, if it's prefab and you're sending it to a different country, well, that doesn't help Canada. That
Yeah.
doesn't help British Columbia. You need to build it here. And like you said, to build a factory, to build this, to train people, it's years.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, you can certainly say, okay, first of all, we should mention that right in it is now November the 8th. It hasn't really been approved fully yet. It needs three votes. The
Right,
first one was positive, and it's likely going to be approved. At least we have something to measure the government by. Here, so
right,
this is what we're going to do. Okay, now we should be. That's what a typical democracy is like. That the government in power makes some decision, the opposition chips away at it, and then hopefully we, the people, benefit down the road. What I'm concerned about is that you mentioned it earlier that the buyers are not out there. Their confidence isn't there. Psychologically, this is a down market. And
hmm,
so when you and I talked about this before, from the buyer's perspective, we do have several thousand condos right now that are finished and unsold. And
right,
to me, that it's a wonderful opportunity to hire a professional realtor, a professional mortgage broker. I was just talking to Kyle Green, and he says,
hmm,
you have to make sure that your appraiser understands that you have your ducks in a row before you go for the mortgage. But he says the money is available. The banks want to lend, but there's tight regulations. But this is sort of the time when the buyer shouldn't be necessarily scared, And when I
right.
take a look in Surrey right now, and we talked about it at the last video, the new condo listings are down 15%. Now, that is usually a sign that when it's really crazy out there, everybody's trying to run away, they
Right.
put their properties for sale. But no, even on single family home, that's only up about 3% in terms of the new listings. And then the new listings on condo are down. So maybe we are in the phase of a bottom building. We don't know for sure, but certainly it's something not to be scared of. Go out there, make some offers, and you might be surprised. You don't have to pay any taxes for 2 years or no condo fees for 2 years. So, yeah, there is actually deals out there where the developer will pay part of your mortgage, over the next 3 years. So instead of giving you
Well,
20,000 or deduction, they're going to say, give you 3,000 a month, and all of a sudden, everything becomes more affordable. And I tell you one thing: once those units are all gone, all those deals will be gone too.
Well, Ozzy, you're absolutely right. Remember 3 years ago when you were telling people we were at the peak of the marketplace, people were running. They were, like you say, they were crawling all over each other, trying to outbid the other guy by $100 or $200,000,
Uh,
right? And now, where are the buyers? And I've always liked to say, when it's a seller's market, there are no sellers, and when it's a buyer's market, there are no buyers.
yeah,
And this is really one of the best
yeah.
opportunities. I mean, if you're trying to help your kids out, think about this. What, and by the way, this is really actually brilliant. I'm just coming up with it as we speak. So, we help our kids out. Guess what? We help them with the down payment. Right now, if somebody's walking away from the down payment, all you have to do is help them qualify, because
Yeah,
you could take their potentially 10 to
right.
20%
Yeah.
deposit and use that as their down payment, because the contract says they bought it for, let's say, $400,000. There's $100,000 deposit. Now they only have to qualify to buy a three, and it's not like they qualify, so the bank will loan them $300,000. They're buying a condo for nothing down out of their own money.
Yeah,
The
I mean, it
investor
isn't
got the
that
money
these
in.
deals are laying around on the floor for you to, but they are every once in a while. And that's why you should talk to your professional realtor. Certainly, like yourself, you're in the marketplace
Thanks.
every day. I think you're actually, he starts open his eyes, listings, then he
Yeah.
sells his eyes, sales. Never
Well, you
stops.
trained me well, Ozzy. You trained me well. That's exactly
I
right.
know, actually, I'm trying to get you to slow down. But the point is, you want to get to somebody that's sort of in the trenches and
Yeah.
hears about deals, and whether it's in Surrey, I hear those deal signs. Savassan, they're in North Vancouver, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
That
They're everywhere.
some people are scared. And when you take a look at the stock market today or all of this market, it's so fearful out there. And the only thing I can tell people in all my speeches, I just go back to 1995 and we had a 13.5% 5-year term. Can you imagine 13.5%? And right now you can get it for 3.5 or 3.8%. It's just unbelievable. But when we
Yeah.
look in the United States in 1992, they closed 1,000 banks. It was sort of the end of the world. Then look at 2008. Everybody remembers that.
Exactly.
Lehman Brothers and everything was collapsing. And today we are back to the same naysayers, and yet we always have muddled through. And I think what the government is trying to do with this budget, saying, look, we are up front here. We put a lot of money towards it. Yes, we still have to figure out when this money is available, how it is being applied, and the proverbial devil's in the detail. But it's a start, and we'll have to just see how it all shakes
Well,
out.
you're right. The budget, it's good to have a budget out there. They're still working on it, like you say. The reality of it is it's hard to tell. I remember when Stephen Harper said, "Hey, we'll do a rollover." Pierre Pollier said, "Hey, we'll do a rollover," and that means if you owned a fourplex and you sold it, you'd keep your money and you'd defer your taxes and you'd put it into the next investment. Now, I'll tell you something that would really stimulate the economy. It would be lovely to see Mark Carney do something like that for the investors because
Well, it's they're
there's
not
so much
going to do it. I mean, this is what we have in the United States. They just,
exactly.
all of the investments we did with our groups in the United States, particularly in the last 15 years, that's what you
Yeah,
could do. You just roll it over. But there are some other things. In the United States, you also have to. You don't have tax-free capital gains on your single-family home residence, right?
right.
So if that came all part of the package, it would be difficult to do. But the
Well, for
point is,
sure, for sure.
taxes taxes by themselves, they're never meant to stimulate from the bureaucrats idea, right?
Right.
And they're there that how can we squeeze as much as possible to pay all the things that we have promised to do or that we want to do. But what we as individuals have to do is point out to the government, hey, it's not working. And I think you and I talked about it before. If I was really far left right now, I would say let's reduce all these fees, the
Hmm.
development cost charges. Originally that was part of the plan, was supposed to be that they're going to cut off all the development cost charges in half. This is what the marketplace wants. Let's
Yeah,
drop it all, get the houses built, and then tax the hell out of them, right? I mean,
exactly.
once the house is built or the condo building is built, then at least I have that. Right now, you have no building, no income,
Exactly.
no taxes,
Yeah. And no jobs for building right
right?
now. I
Yeah,
mean, my gosh. And you're right in the respects to tax them later, get this stuff built. If we're going to have a shortfall, we have a big, big, big country. Everybody likes to be closer to the south, it seems, because,
yeah,
let's face it, it's warmer and stuff. But, there's endless amounts of land everywhere. BC is a little bit more restricted, as you and I both
sure.
talked about. And no, but, there's a lot of land out there for sure. And there's a lot of opportunity. And we go high, but there's government disincentivizing us is not a good way of doing it, right? As a matter of fact, this is a municipal level, and they've talked about this before. Somebody's put the idea out there. Well, maybe we should start taxing them on their principal residences based on their income. Well, hang
Yeah.
on. So you want to start taxing me more if I make more money than like hang on, my land is the same land
Oh
as
yeah.
the neighbor's
Well,
land.
well,
Like,
well, particularly UBC, this anybody really wants to be scared. There's the generation squeeze. This is a group of people that says anybody that's really literally over 40, you've made all your money, you now have to squeeze you because you're squeezing out the young people. All of this
right.
kind of stuff.
You're the fault.
You're the fault. But
We
what
may
we
as well
should
blame somebody else than
Yeah,
instead of
it's always
looking
somebody
inwards.
else, and it
Yeah,
comes to in the end comes to you and me, right? Those that are working, because those are the only ones that can get it from. One of the
yeah,
things we should mention is, and we're going to do a video on that as well, but that is the Cowichan
right.
this deal that people are literally scared. And I tell you one thing, Brent, they have a right to be scared. They better be
Absolutely.
scared. Now, we on the 17th of November have our usual monthly meeting at the Real Estate Action Group, or reag.com. You can look it up. We have the quintessential expert on letting us know not only what exactly happened in Cowichan, what could have been done different, but more importantly, how the government should fight this now, or at least make its case, and the pitfalls. But most importantly, as an investor or as an owner, what kind of an office should you be writing? What clauses should you be having in? And so it could be a very, very important meeting. Anybody that's watching this video, make sure that you go to the reag.com website, or might be reag.ca website,
Right.
and or call Dominic and see whether or not you can get a ticket for the event.
Yeah,
Brent,
definitely. Or call Brent to call me, and we can definitely get you set up. I mean, Ozzy, you're going to be having a great presentation again, as you always do, and I appreciate that. And you've got some great topic, like you said, about what's going on with this land. As a matter of fact, I don't believe, and I could be wrong. I don't know. David Eby didn't get into the fight until Richmond took it on.
it
You know.
was it was ridiculous. The
Oh my
government fell
gosh.
asleep, but more importantly, right now it's a done deal, so we have to fight it. Just a few days ago, the Kamloops band now claims thousands of acres under this precedent that was being set. So it is really something that we should worry about. We'll make that another video. In the meantime, we have to put the budget to bed. We have to digest that before we can tackle something else. Have a great weekend, Brent, and
Thanks, Ozzy.
take
Enjoy the
take some
sunshine and the water out
take
there.
some time off and like the video and subscribe, because if you subscribe, you get a notice that a new video is put up. Bye bye.